Good morning. I hope you guys have been enjoying this series on faith. I've enjoyed teaching it and uh, relearning it. There's a lot to this, and the more I study and the more I go back over stuff that I've taught before, the more I realize how much that I forgot, but I also realize how much that I don't know yet. And this new series. It's not new really. This next series is the fundamentals of faith. I taught this, I think in 22, and I didn't want to rebroadcast it and just re-edit it. I wanted to reteach it. Let fresh things flow from the Spirit, and to let these words come back into life into me so I can remember. Now, what I'm going to be doing is there are 10 topics to these fundamentals. And the first 5 that we will be talking about, the first 5 are faith believes and speaks, build your faith and act on it, unforgiveness disarms faith, meditation and revelation, and the fundamentals work. As I bumped this up on my timer up to 20 minutes because I want to try to maximize each broadcast. Because when I get into a flow, I don't want to stop. Now, some of you know my camera likes to cut off at 20 minutes. So that's the reason I try to keep it under 20 minutes so I don't have to edit. And I lose a lot during that shut off and restart time. The first time I did this, I had a football. I don't have that anymore. Because when I taught this as a Sunday school lesson. I taught this with a football because there's a lot of examples I use towards sports, and I use football as my example. And we're going to continue on with that. I just don't have the visual. So what I want to do is open up as we talk about faith believes and speaks, but I want to start off with an example before we get into scripture. The example applies to any sport. But like I said, we will be using football. When you watch the Super Bowl, what you are watching are the masters of the fundamentals. So what are you watching when you watch high school championship games? Masters of the fundamentals. Yes, they are different levels than JV football, freshman football, 8th grade football, high school football, college level. They're different levels till you get up to be a pro. But they all come right down to the fundamentals. So when you're watching high school championship, state championship football, you're watching the masters of the fundamentals for that level. See, I grew up, I played football, not for the high school team, but backyard football, that kind of stuff. So I can throw a ball. I can catch. I can run. But I can't play at that level. Yes, I'm older. But I never did decide to play at that level. I was fine with the backyard game. I could throw really good. People wanted me to try out for the football team because I was told, I don't know, I was told I was better than our quarterback at the time. But I don't know. I didn't go try out. I didn't want to put forth the effort in football. I didn't want to take up my time. But I could have. And what would that have took? That have took the same thing for me That's what it's going to take for you through this lesson of faith and understanding the fundamentals. It takes practice, practice, practice. And when you think you've done all that, and more practice. We just ended lessons on faith comes. Faith comes by hearing. Life is a series of events. We have times when we are learning, and we have times of practice. But the trick is when we're learning, we're practicing. Because faith comes by hearing. Faith doesn't come by heard. In football, they run plays. They might run 2 plays all day. Run this play. Run this play. Run this play. Till they get it down. Till you know that if they call, I don't know, I'll make something up, 29 red. They call 29 red, you know what your job is for that play. Because they practiced it and practiced and practiced. Faith comes by hearing, not by heard. You can't hear it once and think you got it. Oh, I can stand on faith. I heard that preached once. It's the same reason I'm rebroadcasting this, but not as a rebroadcast as in re-editing an old video. It's the reason I'm teaching it like this again. Practice. Going through it. When we learn, we are practicing. Faith also comes by effort. And you probably haven't heard people say that before. Faith comes by hearing. And hearing by the Word of God. Yes, it does. That's how it comes. It's what the Word says. But faith comes by effort, because if you're not endeavoring, you're not putting any effort into reading the Word, you're not putting any effort into hearing the Word being preached. You go through work, and they've got, society has gotten where we got to have background noise, we got to have music playing, we got to have this, we've got to have that. We can't function. Even at school, they can't practice without music. And I always mess with them. I said, well, that's why you guys messing up during the game. You're so used to hearing music played, you can't play without it. But there is some truth to that. Because that's part of their routine, and then they get into a groove because they've got music. Well, are you putting forth an effort? And faith comes? Well, I'm in a job where I can listen to music. I can listen to the Word. At the end of near the end of the night, when that place ain't got any kids in it, there ain't no activities going on, I throw on my headphones, put on my earbuds, something. I'll listen to the Word. I'll listen to music. Worship music, praise music, contemporary. I'm listening to stuff to build my faith up, to build me up spiritually. Because it comes by effort. If you ain't putting no effort into it, faith can't come, because you ain't hearing nothing. Look at that. That took me almost 9 minutes, and I ain't even got off the first 2 paragraphs yet. See, as we're born and we grow, we learn to walk, talk, read, ride, drive, think, analyze. We learn these at different stages of our life. And as we learn to talk, we start with the basics. Mama, papa, daddy, food, water. As we learn to read, we start see, spot, run, things like that. But as we grow and we read more and we learn to talk more, and then we get older and we learn to think and analyze, we become articulate. Then some people become speakers. There's different levels. But what's the fundamentals? How you form your words. We learn to drive, analyze. We're always learning. We're always growing. Just like football and life, we have to play the game to win. We practice our faith, but when it comes time to put faith into action, when you're sick, when you're broke, when the devil's oppressing you, when life throws something at you that you're not expecting, you wake up one morning, it's a normal morning, all of a sudden something happens. You've been if you've been faith comes by hearing, you've been putting forth that effort. You've been practicing. Now it's time for the game. It's time to put that faith into action. See, in our Christian life, we can read, we can pray, we can hold positions in the church, but there comes a time when we have to play to win. You have to walk out your faith. As I said, when you put on the whole armor of God, and you put on the shoes of peace, and it was based off of Roman army outfits. Those shoes, those sandals had spikes in them so they could stomp in the ground and anchor themselves and not be pushed over easily. When it's time to play, when you got your faith going and it's time something comes up, it's time to anchor yourself in your faith and stand. It says right after about all the armor, and you put on your shoes of peace. It says, having done all, stand. Having done all of what? Having put on your armor. Having prepared for the battle. You ain't been practicing your faith. You ain't been reading. You ain't been praying. You ain't been putting forth the effort to feed your faith. It comes time to get out there and play and put your faith in action. You ain't got nothing to put on. That's where corresponding action comes in. That's why the fundamentals, believe it, say it, act on it, receive it, and testify. These are corresponding actions. They must be ingrained reactions in this game of life. Just like when I said, that 42 red, they practiced and practiced and practiced. And when the coach in the middle of the season hollers 42 red, you know what to do. That's why your corresponding action, you believe it, you say it, you act on it, you receive it, and you testify. We become overcomers by our testimony. You hear a word being given, you say, I receive that. That's for me. You read a word in the Bible and it comes alive to you, you receive that. You read a passage in the Bible and you're feeling depressed, and though it may not jump off the page at you, you're like, oh, I receive that. That's something I need right there. I want to note before we proceed and we actually get into the meat of this, that reading and praying are primary to our Christian life. Yet a person can read and pray and never act on what they know to do. That corresponding action. Practice, practice, and more practice. Be ye overcomers by being, be ye doers of the word. Be ye overcomers. I know I might mess that up a little bit. That's okay. You know what I mean. this is one of our primary texts for this. Probably primary text for just about anything we teach on faith. At least I teach on faith. Mark 11:22 through 25. And Jesus answering said unto them, have faith in God. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Therefore I say unto you, that what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. And when ye stand praying, forgive if you have aught against any, that your Father also which is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. So can you see that corresponding action? Can you see it says believe? We heard that. It says say it. We heard that. Act on it. Receive it. Did you hear all of those in the Mark 11:22 through 25? We're supposed to believe it. Say it. And actually, it says believe once. I believe it got saying in there 3 times. I heard a preacher one time said he was praying about that, and then the Lord told him, he goes, my people don't have a problem with the believing. They got a problem with the saying. They'll believe all day long, but they won't say anything. Believe and say. I guess maybe because it says saying to this mountain, be moved and cast in the sea. And people's like, how am I going to move a big old pile of dirt by what I say? The mountain in your life. We won't even talk about your faith being so strong that you tell some pile of dirt out there to move and it will. We got to build up. We got to practice to that faith. Let's start with the problem in your life. What's real in your life? What's your mountain? Let's start there before we start worrying about a mountain out here. I can't tell Mount Everest to go into the sea. Well, of course not. You can't even believe for your bills to be paid. How are you going to believe for that mountain to Mount Everest just to jump into the water? Your faith ain't there yet. Let's start believing for what we need in our life and putting it to work here and practice. High schoolers ain't going to play with Cleveland Browns and win. Because they haven't got to that level. They haven't grown. A bunch of high schoolers ain't going to go up against a bunch of 300 some odd pound grown men that's been doing this for 15, 20 years longer than they have. Them high schoolers going to practice and grow, and they can get there. Practice and grow where you're at. What's the mountain in your life? Wow, I've only got off the first page and we got only 1 minute 6 seconds left. Well, that's a good start. That's a good introduction. That's a good place to stop at. We will look at the first fundamental is believing next week. But until then, God bless. And remember, practice, practice,